gentlemen, welcome back for yet another episode of an Evolved Review. I'm your host, James Caleb Kitchens, and I am joined each and every week by none other than Caleb Stovall from the Stovall Wrestling Network. Welcome back, Caleb.
Hey, what's going on, man? How's it going?
It is going pretty good, man. I got Turning Point playing in the background over here.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
I
it's
see that.
it's been an eventful week. I want to mention right at the top of the show, just yesterday, Viral Pro Wrestling turned 4 years old. So I want to say a happy birthday to Viral Pro. Hopefully we can get back to running shows with that soon. But you know, just I'm after looking over that highlight video, I'm just absolutely hyped for it and ready for it to be back.
Yeah, I checked it out last night after you told me about it, and I was blown away. I was like, "Holy crap! It's so good." That's what sets Viral Pro Wrestling apart from like everyone else is our production quality, the way we do storylines, the way just the way we run the wrestling business, basically.
Yeah, man. And speaking of awesome storylines, right here today, we've got this was your pick for our kind of classic pay-per-view series that we've been doing for none other than TNA Turning Point 2008.
Yeah, man. Because I remember watching this one, and I didn't watch it live, but I saw it actually as part of a DVD collection, and the DVD came out really quickly. It was during this main event mafia storyline that we're going to get into and everything like that. But I remember watching this from start to back and thinking this might be one of the best pay per views I've ever seen, especially from TNA. That's for sure. But it was just a good pay per view from start to finish. Just every story, every match, like something had a meaning to it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really liked it. I loved the intro video to this. I thought it set the stage really well. Watching it now, it's kind of but like you got to think this was 12 years ago, and 12 years ago, I mean, the production value on this event was on par with what WWE was doing at the time.
And it's funny because they had just switched to HD at this point. This
Yep.
was remember, like WWE had been HD for about a year, maybe two at the most. But then TNA followed that year. They followed in 2008, and not necessarily that they followed WWE, but everything was switching to HD. Like you had to present in HD if you wanted to be on TV. So they had just switched to it, and I loved the redone Impact Zone. Whereas opposed, like I never understood for the life of me, I never understood why they had two separate entrances, one coming this way, one coming that way, kind of thing. I just was just like, what? Like I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of it, they wanted to do like a heels and a face entrance, and the idea there is to present that like these guys aren't hanging out together in the back, like all the heels are hanging out in one locker room and all the faces are hanging out in another locker room. But it's like I mean, then if you're gonna start thinking about it in those terms, then it's like, okay, well, certainly all of these wrestlers don't like think of themselves as like bad guys, and all these wrestlers don't think of themselves as good guys. So like, why would they show up and be like, well, I'm a good guy. Let me go to the good guy locker room. I mean, that it
Yeah,
presents problems. It was cool for a time where they were trying to be different. Um, but it is what it is, and I agree with you. I really like the new look that they had presented here.
I love that big, huge like Titantron that they had. I think
Yes.
it's better than WWE's. It has more variety to it than just like a big, huge, giant screen with a design on the bottom of it. It looked really different, and I always thought that like, man, let's just say like if say you could design the set like that to tour on the road, man. Think of like how cool that would be.
Yeah, they did a really good job with it. There's a lot that you can do with an arena if it's yours, and you
Mhm.
don't have to take it all down and everything every show. I mean,
True.
that's really the hard part of going on the road, and that's why, whenever they're at their performance center, NXT is so crisp, is because your production people know every angle. Your like sound and light people, they know all this stuff. They've worked with this exact same configuration a million times. Whereas when you go
Right.
out on the road, you're at one venue on Monday, one venue on Tuesday, one venue on Wednesday. Even for some of the bigger events, they've got ring crews and stuff in there setting up 2 days ahead of time. So I mean, it's a lot. Just as someone who has unfortunately put together a wrestling set about 200 times in their life.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and
I
and
hope you
and
get
not
some of
on
the
yeah, and not at the level that these guys were doing it either. So
oh god, no.
yeah.
There's no way we could.
So that being said, man, I
Right.
really loved that we open this up and we get none other than a Scott Steiner promo. Um,
Oh, yeah, when they're in the back. Oh my god. It worked.
it did. I mean, like I remember parts of this event, but like I didn't remember the whole thing. So like when they're in the back and they're like, all right, we're gonna go back to like Scott Steiner right now, Big Papa Pumps here. I was like, oh no. Like, are we gonna get a well, my time is double his time, and so I've got a 33.47% chance, but if you look at me and you look at him, then it quadruples my chance, so I got a 775% chance. Like, I didn't know if we were gonna get something like that, but it actually was a really good promo, and the reason I really liked it is because it was almost, in a way, it was a shoot, because while they were making this main event mafia storyline about these like older guys that were like making all the money and you know like kind of controlling the industry and you know like not working their asses off anymore, kind of just collecting paychecks. And then there was this like kind of new school of wrestling that was rising up. These guys are coming up through the ranks. This was very real, especially in 2008. And he talks about coming into the locker room, and he's saying, these guys are back there like playing video games and reading comic books and stuff. Your older schools of wrestling, your Steiners, your Sting, your Ric Flair, your Hogan, these guys were like athletes, bodybuilders. They were mostly recruited from like gyms. People would go out and try
Yeah.
to find a big guy and go, hey, you want to come be a professional wrestler? Make some money. Whereas now, these are guys that like have a real passion for the actual art of wrestling, that grew up watching it and studying it. Um, and they're most of them did not come from like a athletic or bodybuilding background. They got into that arena because of professional wrestling.
Yeah, they were just such a fan of the sport. And that is kind of how it has changed. But if you think about it, I mean, back then they didn't have video games and stuff like that,
Right.
like it just it's a different time. It's a different time in the industry. But that doesn't I don't think it's fair though, if by what you're saying that they're kind of basing it off this. I don't think it's fair to say then that the new generation doesn't go and work out or put as much time in the gym or something. You just might not see it.
No, I definitely wasn't implying that. I'm just saying that whereas these guys, it
Well,
was
not
like
necessarily you, but like the promo itself.
yeah, I mean from a like real life perspective, these guys, a lot of them got into working out because of pro wrestling, whereas the other guys, they just wanted to get jacked. Most of them are jocks and not nerds, and they wanted
Yeah.
to get jacked, and then it was like, hey, you want to come do this pro wrestling thing? So it's a different mentality and it's a different kind of person. I've
Mhm.
been in a lot of locker rooms where you have the old like grizzled vet come in there, and they're just like they have nothing to talk about with anybody in there. They just don't have anything in common because it's just such a very different lifestyle. And not to mention that there's always the grizzled vet that comes in and is like, yeah, who got a Percocet in here, all the guys are looking around like, we don't do that shit, so that's another story. But it happens. I mean, there was once a time where like drug and steroid use in general was a big thing in the industry, and now, I mean, You just don't see a lot of that.
Yeah, and hey, that's for good reasons,
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
that's a good thing. But I got to bring something up in this, right? So Jeremy Borash is, the one that opens up, the pay per view and tries to get a word with the main event mafia, and all the guys ignore him. But the funniest one was Booker T because he gets out of the car like this. he
Yes.
just, he just,
I love Booker in like every second of all of this that Booker was on the screen. I thought he was doing an amazing job, and obviously it's an extension of his King Booker personality from WWE. But he nails it here. He does
yes,
a fantastic job with it, and I love that they open the show with them. Um, we'll talk more as the event goes on about like how the main event mafia is portrayed here, but I
right,
think that opening package really sold it very well that there's this old school and new school kind of mentality here. And the idea is that these older guys, the veterans, are supposed to pay back and they're not doing it. And the younger guys are supposed to be learning from them, but they're having to make their own kind of path here. And I also love, and we'll definitely get into this more later. I love that like Christian or Christian Cage, as he was called at the time, is pictured as being sort of in the middle of this.
right.
He put his time in on the road in the old school, but he's also a younger guy, and he, relates to this younger generation coming up, and he did not want to pick a side in this. And there's also the element of it that there's the TNA guys, and then the rest of them are the WWE guys that
Yeah.
WWE or WCW guys.
Yeah, it's kind of sounds like a familiar storyline that happened in the 90s. I don't know. It might have been this little storyline that like might have panned out. I don't know how big it was or something like that.
Could have been, man. They might have sold a shirt or two.
Am I sold one?
So let's get into the first match, and we've got Mike Tenay and Don West on commentary.
Right.
Um, I like Mike Tenay. Don West is like, to me, either Don West is either on or he's off. Um, Sometimes Don West sounds like a infomercial, and sometimes he sounds like he's been watching wrestling for like 200 years. Um,
Yeah.
and I think he did a pretty good job tonight.
Dude, okay, so I always like almost want to debate people on this because like I've been hearing a lot of podcasts recently, and anytime they review a TNA show and they talk about Mike Tenay and Don West and everything, I liked the two of them together.
Yeah,
I thought they had good chemistry with each other. I don't think Mike Tenay ever had that with Taz. I don't think, he was okay in WCW when all he had to do was kind of just describe, be the color basically, like, and
right.
give us the lucha histories and stuff like that. But I tell you why I always liked them from the beginning. And it was because, and I've had discussions with you about this, I was so sick and tired at the time of doing that baby face commentary or the baby face head announcer and then the heel color. Like I just was like, oh my god, I'm so tired of that. Like, can someone just call the damn action, like, for regular? And so when I saw this in TNA, I was like, oh, two announcers just sitting there calling the action. I'm for it. Like, I'm for it. Like, so I always liked the two of them, and I thought Don West did a great. I get why people say that. I really do. And was he the best? No, but I thought he worked well with Tanay for some reason. I just thought the two of them had great chemistry, and for a while there, to me, it wasn't a TNA show if you didn't have the two of them commentating.
It was they did have really good chemistry together. I think one of the things that I think people don't like about the duo is they both talk quickly.
I
Um,
will say,
you usually because in TNA shit is popping off so fast because
yeah,
this is wrestling. And there was a lot of fast-paced matches. I mean, if you look at this first match, that's got a lot of the smaller guys in it. I mean, I don't think the only time one of them gets to breathe is when the other guy's talking.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you know how it is. I mean, you've seen a match get so fast paced that both the commentators are like just trying to keep up with what's happening. And I mean, you talk about doing that for 3 straight hours in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
I've had that happen at a couple of viral shows.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I really appreciated their commentary on this, and I thought it was really good, especially, and we'll get to it, in the Falls Count Anywhere match. I thought they
Oh
they
yeah.
did such a good job with that. But
Yeah.
let's get into this first one. So, the
All right.
very first one we've got a 10-man X Division elimination rankings match. That's a
Mm-hmm.
mouthful, and
Yeah.
we're using Lucha Tag rules. Um, thank you, AEW, for explaining what the rules were for the match. um, so Lucha Tag rules meaning if the legal man rolls out, anybody else can come in. No tag is needed.
Right.
Um, so the guys we got in this now, it's crazy the amount of people that are in this match that are huge today, or at least on the indie scene considered to be like kind of top tier, like veterans. um Eric Young,
Yeah.
Consequences Creed, who w- we all know from the New Day. I mean, this man has probably sold more merchandise than 95% of everyone in the wrestling business.
Yeah. And
Because
he has his own show.
Right, I mean, because the New Day was like the number one merchandise sellers for like over a year, and
Yeah.
they've been in the top 10 for like a decade. It's madness just how over they continue to be all the time. And every time you think that it's gonna get old, like people still love them. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, it was crazy to see him here. Um,
Well, they always deliver.
right, they do. Um, we've got Homicide here, and Homicide, of course, has a
I
incredibly
love
storied
it.
career. Um, let's see, we've got who else we got in this match? We got Doug Williams, who okay,
Yeah.
Doug Williams was there. Um, Jay Lethal, who has had several runs in Ring of Honor that were prominent, and he's doing the Black Machismo gimmick here, which everyone loves universally. Um,
Yeah.
let's
Sanjay Dutt.
Sanjay Dutt's here. Freaking Tanahashi from New Japan is here, who is still, as we speak right now, going at
I,
it.
when I saw that, I went, "Holy shit!" Like he was there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it was
man,
insane.
it really was. Um, we've got Petey Williams,
Yeah.
and Petey Williams was doing the what the Maple Leaf
Muscle.
muscle, and everyone loved this. It
A
showed
little
this.
Petey pump.
Yeah, it showed this awesome dimension to him that he could play this character. And I mean, we already knew that he was incredible in the ring,
Yeah.
but this showed us that he could take a gimmick like this and that was insanely silly and make it work and keep us entertained with it. So I loved this whole era. Petey Williams is so good. We had Volador Jr. in there.
Yeah.
Did I miss anybody? You said Sanjay Dutt.
Right.
Um, fucking Jimmy Rave. Um,
Yeah.
fuck Jimmy Rave. But he was in the match. He's a junkie. He made whatever. Uh, yeah, fuck you, Jimmy Rave, if you're watching this. Anyway, uh,
Right.
um, so yeah, this match, man, was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was perfect way to start off this pay per view, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there were some incredible like moments in this match, and I was worried about so many of the people who were supposedly on the side of the TNA originals kind of being in here competing, but they made that make sense. Um, I think they explained it pretty well. Um, Eric Young here was in the middle of transitioning out of his like really silly character into being like a more serious kind of like defender of TNA. It kind of reminded me a lot of, Tommy Dreamer when he was like representing ECW and WWE. Um, it was kind of a similar role to that.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of silly stuff at the time. Like he even did Super Eric.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, he's so damn entertaining and he's so good at it that he could do anything he wants and he's just that good. And for the life of me, like when I hear him talk, I'm just like, how the fuck did WWE not do anything with you?
Right. I mean, there's a lot of people that that's the case for, but he's definitely on the list.
Wasn't Sanity huge at one point in NXT?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just it doesn't make any sense. But right here, yeah, he was doing a lot of silly stuff, and he was transitioning into like being the baby face, and then like months later he would turn heel and do the world elite thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned Sanity because I mean, that whole angle was crazy. Um, and it just kind of fell off. And I don't really get it, but
Because it went to the main roster, and for some reason they looked at it and went, "We don't know what to do with that." I'm like, "Well, good God, if you're going to push Roman Reigns so much, at least have them feud with him."
right, do something with them.
Like,
At least maybe you guys will mess up and we'll accidentally be entertained for a moment. Um, I do want to mention before we move on though that freaking dive from Homicide in this match.
did
Uh,
he legit injure himself?
I
Like when I even saw this back then, I tried to figure this out.
I want to say that he did. I don't know that he was like severely hurt or anything. Like I don't know if it was like he had to like be in the hospital or whatever. But he was definitely banged up, man. Like he just yeah, that was a very freaking sick bump that he took onto the rail outside.
Yeah, I think he overshot it. Like he had got so much momentum with it, and he just overshot it. And then the momentum actually took him into the wall, and I think he like legit hit the wall or something like that. Or but you really couldn't tell. Like they tried not to like visualize it so much because they were probably like, all right, he could be working, but if something's really wrong, don't show it so much. But
Yeah.
if, if he's okay, you can show it, kind of thing,
Yeah.
which I understood. Before we continue on, what did you personally think of the six-sided ring?
I loved it. There's a reason why when Hogan had the idea to go to four sides, that the crowd unanimously chanted, "We want six sides"
Yeah,
the whole time.
it was TNA's identity.
Right. Yeah.
Like it was
Absolutely.
what made them. But every time, like, and I ask this because every time I listen to one of the podcasts, like especially Bischoff's podcast when he talks about TNA, like he trashes the six-sided ring. I mean, he trashes it. So does Bruce Pritchard. So does like a couple of other people. And I'm just sitting there, just like, I don't get it. Like, what do you not understand that? Even Jeff Jarrett said it. He's like, when we got the six-sided ring, I was able to negotiate toy like um negotiations. Like he was able to do that because they had a six-sided ring. Because at first they were just like, oh, you have a four-sided ring, who cares? Like you have a wrestling ring, that's the same thing WWE has. Oh, you have a
Right.
six-sided ring, we can use that.
Yeah, because like who's gonna go out if you're a little kid? Who's gonna go out and trade out your four-sided ring that you have for another four-sided ring with just a different logo on it? I mean, most people aren't gonna do that. Um, yeah, I mean, I love the six-sided ring. I think it's a fantastic look. It looks good on camera. There's less distance between the ropes, so they're tighter, so you can do better springboards and different maneuvers with those. Um, I mean, it definitely works out well if you're gonna do a 10-man elimination match too. Um, it's a lot more spread out. I love the six-sided ring. Um, they
I did.
are because of the way that they're made, they are very, very stiff. But TNA got around that because they had like a really nice layer of padding on top of there. Um, it wasn't. It was actually like around this time I actually got to get into a TNA ring when they came to Augusta.
I
Uh,
was there.
yeah, and I got to like and I was like, oh okay, this thing is really well padded because I had been in a different six-sided ring and it was awful.
Yeah, and that to me was like was one of the big draws as well at house shows. Like it's like, oh, you can get in the six-sided ring. Well, the six-sided ring definitely is different than the four-sided ring. Like, so that's like a draw in and of itself. When they did it here at the Bell Auditorium, though, and it was the four-sided ring even at the time. This was even after Hogan left, but like it was still four sides for some reason. And like when they had the guy at the end of the night take pictures, it was like nobody wanted to go because I was just like, yeah, because it's not a damn six-sided ring. Like,
Yeah, it did a lot for their brand identity, and I think it was a mistake to ever go away from it.
and plus, like, while we're at it, lockdown. When you took away the six-sided ring, you took away the whole point of lockdown. I was like, well, then that was stupid.
Yeah, the whole six sides of steel match, the entire concept of that, you're getting rid of it, and I think it was a huge mistake. Hogan didn't know how to work in a six-sided ring. That's the only reason that they changed it. He couldn't figure it out. I mean, he couldn't work in a four-sided ring either. So you know, I don't know why they
Well,
had to change it.
Sting said that he hated it,
He did.
but he still learned how to work in it, and he still had some of the best matches of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree entirely.
So, I just
Um,
I don't know that just irks me when I hear it because I'm just like it was their whole brand identity and everything like that. It's what made them different.
Now I haven't watched TNA in probably like 6 years. Did they go back to it?
So they went. So okay. So Hogan, took it away, and it was gone for a number of years. And I, I want to say around 2013 or four. No, 2015 is when they went back to it. They went back to it for a little bit because they did a poll that asked, "Would you like the six-sided ring back?" or something like that, and it was a unanimous yes. But at that point, it didn't matter.
Right.
Like the company was already in shambles at that point. But they went back to it. Then Anthem, bought it out, and they kept it for a little bit, and then they went back to the four-sided ring.
Yeah. So the up next we got a tag match. This match, so we've got Roxy and Taylor Wilde up against Awesome Kong and Raisha Saeed, who's they were accompanied to the ring by Raka Khan. Um, I don't remember a lot about this feud, and I'll be honest, as someone who is a huge Awesome Kong fan, I was not a real big fan of this match.
Mm.
However, when I was watching this, I did remember when I was seeing them actually like wrestling, I do remember that at this point in time, this was the only place you could see women's wrestling because
Yes.
WWE's Divas division was a complete freaking joke.
Yes.
Um, if you wanted to see storylines about, somebody took my makeup out of my purse, and so now we have to have, a mud bath match or whatever, then you could go see that on Raw anytime you wanted. Um,
Yeah.
but if you wanted to see women's wrestling, then you had to come watch it in TNA, and that was their advantage. And I mean, I loved Awesome Kong. I mean, her entire run. I mean, even today when she came out on AEW, that was the biggest I had popped in a long time. I loved it.
Nice.
I mean, 20 years from now, that was at All In, wasn't it? The first one?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
No,
S-
no, 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 not all in. Double or nothing.
Okay, yeah.
First one,
10 years from
because
now
pay per
is now
view.
there's yeah, 10 years from now, if I don't remember anything else about that event, that's what I'm gonna remember is is them bringing her out because that was a complete surprise to me, and I'm a huge mark for Awesome Kong. Um, I didn't really like the ring work in this match a lot though. Um, Roxy just doesn't do it for me. Taylor Wilde is pretty good. Um, she
I
was
like
kind
Taylor
of
Wilde.
what's that?
I said I like Taylor Wilde. She
Yep.
impressed me like at the time when she was in the division and stuff like that. But you know, their golden one had left at this point, which was Gail Kim.
Yeah, exactly. And she was really over. And I liked what they were trying to do with Taylor Wilde, but to me, they were really trying to mold her into like a new Trish Stratus. I felt like
Yeah,
were trying to do that a little too hard. Um, but that being said, like I really liked this. Um, from a standpoint of like they went out there, they told the story they had to tell, and they got out of the ring. It was like an 8-minute match, so they weren't out here trying to do all this like nonsense. Um, I loved the finish, even though if I didn't love the match itself, the ring work in the match, I loved the finish, which was that really cool like bridging German suplex.
yeah. I did like that too. Fun fact too. Rashid, how do you say her name?
It is it is Raisha Saeed.
Oh yeah, Raisha Saeed. Fun fact about her, she is cheerleader Melissa.
Really?
Yes,
Ha! That's cool.
she was cheerleader Melissa, and like I don't know whose call that was. I never understood it. I was like, she was a good spokesperson for Kong. I'll give her that. But she was far like she could have fucking carried the division herself at the
Right.
time, in my opinion. She was so good, and she never got a chance to show it, in my opinion.
I agree. That is a waste. Yeah. I actually
Like
didn't
if
know
you
about
were
that.
gonna build like if you were gonna try to build that division, I would have so tried to do it around her.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
agreed. Um,
hey, that's just me.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. She was fantastic. I actually didn't know that until right now.
Yeah.
Um, so they had a really good finish to that match. So the next match that we had, and this to me is this next match, which was Rhino and Sheik Abdul Bashir.
Mhm.
Um, I have a lot of problems with this match. It was clearly filler for the night, right? Um, the problem is like it feels really bad today watching this because of the tone of the match, but this was a lot of what was happening back then, where they would take like someone who's like of like it has an like an Arab background, right? Um, or is from the Middle East, and they would make them a villain based on the fact that they were from the Middle East.
Right.
And like it wasn't classy then, but like today watching it, it feels awful, you know. Um, just like watching that kind of thing. I wasn't a huge fan of Davari when he was in WWE either. Um, so I don't know that this match like really was needed on the card. I know why they put it in there to get that kind of like patriotism rah rah thing. Rhino looked and moved great in this match though. It wasn't like a horrible match or anything like that, but I just didn't feel like it felt like it was just kind of shoved into this card.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I will say this, like, Sheikh Abdul Bashir and Davari or whatnot. I don't really like those, but I like Sean Davari
Yeah,
because if you actually listen to the way he speaks, like, dude, he can cut a promo. Like, the man's really good at that. I do. I didn't like the feeling of it, especially when I don't like those storylines. I never have. I don't even think they age well like today. Like I don't think the Sergeant Slaughter storyline ages well. I don't think a number of like the only one that I liked that is still good to this day, and you can't take anything away from it, was the Bret Hart. You know, everyone else likes me except America.
Yeah,
That was just brilliant.
yeah,
But, like, I didn't like it when they were doing it with Rusev. I didn't like it, I just I don't like those storylines, so I get what you're saying. I think the thing for me in this matchup, the thing that is most memorable are the visitors that decide to show up during the, event. That we have the Insane Clown Posse, ICP, and a lot of JCW at the time, which also, if you notice him, I don't know if you could tell, but was also Scott Hall.
I
Scott
d-
Hall was ringside.
I didn't catch that, but that makes sense.
He's there. He wrestled for JCW like a few times, especially around that time, and he was there in the crowd with them. So, and she goes over there and starts to, mess with them. I'm sitting there like, man, they're not part of the show. Like they'll actually hit you.
Right. Yeah.
So, but what was interesting, and I don't know if you would call it respect or anything like that, because actually the Insane Clown Posse had a pretty good run in TNA when they did the back in the pay per view days. They had a pretty okay run with TNA. So I don't know if you necessarily call it respect or kind of cool that they did this, but while they were coming in and clearly the crowd saw them and it kind of took away from the matchup in a little bit, they kind of tried to get them back into the match. Like they were cheering for Rhino at one point. They cheered for the next matchup that they were there for, because they're not there the whole show. They're only there for this match and the next matchup. But they kind of tried to keep it in the ring, to their credit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not like a fan of ICP in any way, but they were at least a notable like. I mean, you can't deny their impact on pro wrestling.
Oh yeah.
No pun intended. Um, because they had video games based around them. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is what it is. But yeah,
They run their own festival.
right. But this match I thought was kind of filler and a little long, and it was probably there so they could get that spot in. Um, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you about Davari as well. Like as a manager, he was incredible because I mean he got Muhammad Hassan over and the Great
Yeah.
Khali. I mean he really sold those gimmicks. I mean these were like main event gimmicks in the WWE when he was their manager for them.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he had a program with The Undertaker.
Yeah,
You don't get higher than that.
yeah. Um, that being said, we got to talk about this next match.
Of course.
Uh, for the TNA World Tag Team Championships, we have Beer Money
Mhm,
Inc. Up against the Motor City Machine Guns,
mhm.
Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. I was joking. So last night when I was watching this, I was talking to Rob Killjoy, and I said I want to book James Storm versus Alex Shelley in a I Can't Afford Your Partners match. Um, because I was sitting here watching this and I was just like, man, it also like doesn't Storm look so young here?
Right?
Yeah. Um, but it was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And Beer Money to me is the most successful gimmick in the history of TNA.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, yeah, I could see that.
I mean, from a financial and like popularity standpoint, I really think that I mean everybody could get with that. gimmick. I mean, people loved it. In a very similar, way that Austin was, so
Yeah.
over. And you have, Storm, who is, and honestly, like, I hate to compare them to Austin, but they kind of were like Austin in the fact that, like, each of them were a part of Austin. Like, Rude was like the ringmaster. He's the showman and the technical worker, and then James Storm would come out there and drink beer and kick the shit out of you. So it was like the two different sides of Steve Austin as a tag team, you know, and it just works so well together. Their chemistry, I mean, they're probably like the top five tag teams of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I always loved Bear Money. I especially loved it, especially when like me and Blake would watch TNA all the time, and we would do the chant Bear Money. Like that was obviously one of the best parts to me of the tag team. But they were amazing together. And here's the thing, they were great as a tag team, but both of them were just as good as equal or as singles.
And they still are to this
Yeah,
day.
absolutely. But then, dude, you talk about a tag team, man. The Motor City Machine Guns.
Yeah. Also,
Uh,
to this
they,
very day, still
yeah,
amazing.
yes. And I saw that when they showed up at Slammiversary, even you like you messaged or you posted on Facebook and was like the Motor City Machine Guns. I was like, whoa, what? Like,
How many times have you ever seen me post about anything in TNA in any point in time in the last
dude,
forever? Yeah, I mean, I don't give a shit about TNA like today.
I know.
Motor
And then
City got me to watch it though.
I know, and like I saw that and I went, "Whoa, okay, I need to see this." But they were incredible in this matchup. There's two segments though that happened that we forgot to mention, which will kind of make sense in this matchup as well, and will start to make sense throughout the night. Is Jeff Jarrett is talking with Mick Foley, and
Yes.
he says, "All right, well, you know what? Here's Mick. We're gonna they've got the gun loaded. We're gonna help take a few bullets out of the gun, kind of thing." He's like, you go talk to the kids and everything. Talk to them. I'm gonna go talk to the main event mafia. And like, I don't know what it was about this, but I thought it was tremendous the way that they did that.
So, before I get into how great this was, I want
Right.
to talk about the technical aspect of it. Now, I don't know if this is just on the Impact app, but in all the backstage videos, except for like the very first one they did with Big Papa Pump at the beginning of the night, everybody who was talking on the mic, their volume was like so low. I had to jack my TV way up to hear them. So I don't know if it's just the app or something that it was like a technical issue. That being said, now that I got that out of the way, though, I loved this segment and the way that Jarrett and Foley interacted with each other.
Yes. I loved it. I thought it was great. And then Jared goes into the main event mafia locker room. That doesn't go well because obviously, like Kurt, is wanting to get him. Like he just wants to get Jeff Jarrett at the time. They were in a heated rivalry. No, it was not because of Karen at this
Right.
point.
Yet. Yet.
Yet. No, it was not about that. But they just had a really good rivalry at the time. And then Mick Foley goes in, and this is key to this matchup and to really start the night and everything like that of what's to come. Is they go to the front line, as they're called, the TNA front line, and they go in and they talk, or he talks to them, and the Motor City Machine Guns were being very disrespectful. They were talking like not wanting to hear what he had to say. And then he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you?" Like, you look at Mick Foley and say that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, dude, you kidding me?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
we know, obviously, it was a work and everything like that. But that's the way the segment's going. And that's very key, I think, as to describe what's going to happen the rest of the night, including this matchup.
Well, and the machine guns were heels before. And so
Right.
now, because Beer Money, I think they were definitely trying to get a heel reaction during this, but it wasn't happening. Um, so the machine guns were like heels, and then they were trying to make it kind of like they're just with the TNA originals because they are TNA originals, and so they're kind of on the face side of this war. And so yeah, I mean them still being like really like snarky and disrespectful and stuff that worked. Um, I liked this segment backstage with them. It's still so crazy to see AJ, at kind of that stage in his life, But yeah, I mean,
Right.
I love that him and Joe are like the generals of the like TNA army here. And out of all the people in that room, look at who has done the best for themselves. I mean, it's definitely those two guys.
Very much so. Very much so because AJ, they always said, nope, he's not going to make it in WWE. And what do you know? He shows up and he literally, the minute he walked in the door, he became the biggest star since I would put him up there with Stone Cold, The Rock, or Triple H in WWE.
Stone Cold himself said that Styles is the best right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Undertaker has said that he's the best right now. He retired the Undertaker, the man that retired Shawn Michaels. I don't know if there is an accolade that you can. I mean, I don't know that there is a higher accolade than that to achieve unless you're gonna, go like 25-0 at WrestleMania or something.
Right.
And I think it's way too late for that.
Right.
Styles will be coming out there with a walker, you know. Um,
You know what? It would still probably be good.
Still be better than anything Roman Reigns ever gonna fucking do. Uh, um, Speaking of this next match, man, I really like there's an aspect of all of this that feels like they're really trying to capitalize on like the WWE star power because they were. I mean, there was a lot of former WWE talent on the roster at this point in time. Um, and I do think for the most part they were being used really well, but there definitely was that like, okay, well I'm done with WWE, I'm disgruntled with this, whatever, whatever. I'm gonna go work for TNA. It was kind of like a hey, I went to TNA. It became a meme basically. Um, that being said, we have Booker T with the Legends Championship, which is a great looking title. And we have Christian Cage, and the stipulation here is if Cage wins, he becomes the Legends champion. If Booker T wins, then Christian Cage will join the main event Mafia. Which, if you remember the storyline around this championship, Booker T just kind of was like, "I'd like a championship," and he just was like, "This is a new title. Here it is." He- He's just like, you know what? I'm a legend. Here's a Legends championship right here. And it was just like, hey, okay, well he's got a title. There he is.
Yeah, it was. I guess it was kind of like their way of trying to do something different, other than a TV or United States or an intercontinental title or anything like that. Um, but I never got it. I was like, so does that mean you have to be a legend to challenge for this? Like,
Right, yeah, it wasn't well explained. I do like the red strap on it. It reminds me of the current NWA national title. Um, but I loved this match. I like Charmel. I love their backstage, segment beforehand where they were talking about the match. Um, I'm a huge fan of Christian Cage. Uh,
yes,
Christian, out of all six of the guys that were in the legendary like TLC matches, Christian got it the worst in WWE out of everybody. Um, Now, granted, like Devon Dudley was never like WWE champion or anything, but Christian only had his title for a month, and he only got it because Edge had to retire and his connection with Edge. He never would have gotten it if not for that. Um,
yeah,
you know, it was very similar to them giving the championship to Ray right after Eddie passed away, even though I think Rey Mysterio probably would have eventually won it anyway. Christian never would have. For whatever reason, Vince McMahon just didn't see whatever it is in Christian that pretty much everyone else sees.
Yeah, and I don't know why you can't see that because he clearly was one of the reasons TNA really started to take off. Like, because while yes, he was associated with the WWE, he wasn't that main star in WWE. I mean, you would see like 4 or 5 segments before him, in WWE or something like that. Like he was definitely like he wasn't even mid card at one point.
Right.
So like and then he goes to TNA and it's like a new Christian and stuff like that. And it was like Christian Cage. Um but like I loved his TNA run. I thought he was amazing. He was amazing as TNA world champion, even the NWA champion as well. Or maybe it was just the NWA champion. But either way, the TNA champion, he was amazing at that, both heel and face. Like it was tremendous. And so like I never understood that why they can't see that in WWE. But yeah, I love this matchup. And it's probably because like the two of them just looked at each other and they were like, "Hey, we've done this 1,000 times. Let's just go."
Yeah.
We'd
They
have
had
to
a good
go.
match. Christian's best work, I mean, in his career is definitely in TNA.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I mean, not to say he didn't have great runs in WWE. He definitely did, but I mean,
Yeah, he did.
TNA handed him the ball and let him run with it, and he ran with it. And I think he is responsible for a lot of these other WWE guys coming over because they were like, "Oh, okay, well, like Christian went over there and he's doing really well for himself."
Right. And I think too, because it's funny, because like, he loses this matchup, Booker T goes over. So now he has to be a part of the main event mafia. Well, the very next impact, he leaves to go to WWE again.
Yeah,
And they had just in case he stayed, because he didn't know if he was going actually. He was still kind of deciding the decision. Ultimately, he chose WWE. And I really think he should have just stayed in TNA, because had he stayed in TNA, they had some plans still for him. Like they had a storyline planned out if he stayed.
yeah. I mean, I think ultimately they would have probably had him turn on them, and kind of side with the TNA originals.
Yeah,
And that's what
he
I would have
would have
done anyway.
despised them.
Yeah, I mean, he would have been like, it would have been the symbolism of him saying, yes, I as well came from WWE, but I am a TNA guy now.
Right.
And it would have been a good story. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but WWE probably offered him some serious zeros on the check. So,
Why
you
would
know,
you offer that though if you're not going to use them?
I mean, WWE keeps hundreds of people under contract that they're not using at all, that you'll never even see on TV, just to keep them from being in another promotion.
It's stupid, and it's not even a top draw for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Um, that being said, I know that this next one is your probably favorite match on this card. And I forgot how good this damn match was. So we've got Kurt Angle and Abyss, Falls Count Anywhere.
oh my god, this was like, if nothing else, people, if like all you can watch is one matchup from this or something like that, then go find this matchup, because this matchup is incredible. It is one of my favorite Kurt Angle matches. It's definitely my favorite Abyss match. And Abyss had a lot of great matches in TNA, but this one just, oh, this is definitely, I don't care what anyone says, this is the best Falls Count Anywhere match I've ever seen.
As someone who definitely has issues with Abyss today, uh,
Right? I know.
I, I, when I started watching the match, I was like, this is going to be tough for me to be objective. But I loved it. I loved the match. I thought it was great. It was. I mean, this was. It was so good to see Kurt Angle on his game again,
Yeah.
because that just everything that they had him do in WWE was just disgusting. Like they were just shitting on the legacy of an all-time great.
Yeah, and even with like his return, I mean, I was okay with the general manager part. I like that part. But then like you just had him come in to help the Shield. I was like, "What?" Like it made no sense. And then obviously his last match with Baron Corbin and stuff like that.
Ugh, that
But
retirement match made me incredibly ill. I just to this day, it's like I want him to get in shape and come out of retirement and have a real retirement match.
and to be honest, I mean, but it should be with John Cena.
Agreed. Let him go
It
out how he came in. You know how Cena came in. Yeah.
Exactly. Like it would be the perfect ending. But well, that's neither here nor there. But this dude, and we talked about Don West and Mike Tenay. This was probably some of the best work I've ever done during a match.
It was incredible. I just want to say that senton that Angle hits off of the stage.
Yes. I was about to bring those up like that senton that he does. Oh my god. And dude, that thing is so high up too. Like
He hit Abyss with such force that it rolled him backwards.
yeah.
You could tell by the look on his face that he was surprised by how hard he hit him. I mean, he leapt off that fucking stage, man, and it was insane. The
Oh, dude.
height, the speed, the accuracy of the flip, it was perfect. It was one of the most insane things I've ever seen anybody do in
Yeah.
a wrestling match. And that is such a tall order
Yeah.
today. But when I remember seeing him do this, but when I saw it again, I mean, it floored me just like it did the first time. There were
Yeah.
definitely there was a lot of callbacks to him and Shane McMahon's. Um, was it a hardcore match? No holds barred. I don't remember exactly what the the
No holds
terminology on the match was. Yeah, I think it was no holds barred.
no street fight.
Street fight. One of those.
Street
Uh,
fight.
yeah, Angle. Everybody knows the Angle and Shane McMahon match
Which is
with
still amazing
Glass.
to me
Yeah,
today.
this really reminded me a lot of that match, and that's an incredible compliment.
Yeah. I agree, but it had its own feel to it and
Yeah,
everything like that. I even love the spot that clearly was kind of taken from that, but it it worked so well with it. Like just dude, everything they did in this matchup, like like when you look up the definition of a falls count anywhere matchup, this is it right here. Like I'm just like this is with the exception of maybe, and I don't know how much flack I get for saying this, but Chris Benoit and Kevin Sullivan, falls count anywhere match. But I don't know if I'm
that was a
allowed to
good
say
match. Hey
that.
man, if we could talk about Chris Benoit and his family on the show, we could talk about Chris Benoit anything.
Okay, there you go. Well, that matchup with him and that matchup with him and Kevin Sullivan still stands up to this day. I rank this one higher than that. Just because I don't know why. And to me, when I saw it, I kind of was just like, oh my God, like, why didn't y'all do more with Abyss and Angle together after this? Because they clearly had some great chemistry.
Yeah, I mean they really could have done more with this. I agree, but this match was incredible. It was it was
What
bar
do you
none.
think of the Abyss basically being an inmate of an insane asylum kind of thing?
Um, I did note the park on his I was gonna say jersey, but I guess on his like inmate suit, whatever.
Yeah,
Chris Park is his real name, which was cool.
right.
Um, so I took notice of that. It was a cool gimmick. I liked it. I mean, obviously he is a huge fan of Foley because the gimmick screams mankind. But yeah, I thought it was good. I loved Abyss back in the day. I was a big fan of
Yeah.
his. The Black Hole Slam was a cool finisher. Um, it was just good. And this match was definitely, I mean, it's one of his best matches, and it's Kurt Angle bringing his A game, which, I mean, there's nothing bigger than that. I mean, Kurt Angle on his A game is as good as anybody.
Yeah, I agree. And then like the ending to the matchup, they're up on top, like above the announcers. Like, would you call that a scaffold?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they were up on top of the scaffold, and then he just fall like he punches him off, and he falls through the table, and that was the ending to it, man. Dude, just I beg everyone. I'm like, at least if you don't want to watch the pay per view in full or something, you should watch the pay per view in full. But if nothing else, you need to go and watch this matchup. This matchup was incredible. It was so good that I'm curious as to what Meltzer rated it, and
yeah,
I usually don't give a shit.
yeah. I would have to look that up for sure. I want to know. I do know that I did look it up, and they had over like 30,000 pay-per-view buys for this event, which
Really?
which at this point in time, that was an incredible number for
Yeah.
them.
It's I was about to say for them, that was huge.
Yeah. Um yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, it was a good match, good event. Uh
Yeah.
I loved this match. I guess we should talk about this next one that I didn't love. So before I get off on this,
I know.
Samoa Joe is my guy. Like, he is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He is in my top probably 3 personally.
Yes.
From a list of like, there's always different lists, right? There's like your personal favorites, and then the people that you think are the best in the world. And
Right.
I think Joe can go with the best that there are. Um, if AJ Styles is the best
The match
wrestler alive,
and Angle had together were incredible.
yeah, exactly. If I mean, I loved his match with Lesnar for the title. That was the best match Lesnar had that whole year.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
I'm just a huge fan of Joe, and I mean, if AJ Styles is the best wrestler in the world, his best opponent is Samoa Joe. I mean, I I can't disagree with that at all. That being said, fucking Kevin Nash. Uh, Kevin Nash looks like he should be in a nursing home in this. Uh,
Ah!
a- and I don't think it affected his work because it's not like he was very good when he was young. But come on, man, I hated this match so much. I there's a point in the match, and I won't rant on this too long, but there's a point in the match where he whips Joe into the ring post, and Joe tries to sell. I mean, Joe sold the shit out of it, as best as he could.
Right.
But then Nash proceeds to go under the ring, get a toolbox, find some clippers or whatever. Now, ideally you would think, okay, well, the guy's out here selling, like, maybe I should pick him up, throw him in the guardrail, or hit him with a big boot or something like that. No, he gets done digging in the toolbox, goes in the ring, and like sits here and cuts the turnbuckle pad off and like slides the little pads out. And I'm like, okay, okay, maybe it just took him a minute. He's definitely not used to tearing down wrestling rings and things like that. Whatever. And then he gets back out, and Joe is still trying to sell this shit. Then he goes out to the crowd and grabs a chair, and I'm just like, what? I mean, what are we doing here? Like, And Joe was just trying to. I mean, Joe carried his ass through this match. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I mean, they did it. They did it. I guess as well as you could expect from these two guys. But I hated it, and I especially hated that he had to put Nash over. But they had to. There's this whole thing with when you're doing a faction angle like this, where at the very beginning of that faction, you feel like you have to make them insanely dominant, almost to the point that now it feels cliche and expected. When the crowd sees like a faction form, they're immediately like, "Oh well, for the next 3 months, I'm gonna have to see these guys beat everybody," and it's predictable now.
Right. Especially, ever since the NWO and Evolution and all them, really outplayed that and stuff like that. I get what you're saying. I do. Now, I was a Big Daddy Cool fan when I was a kid. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I liked
Uh,
him when I was a kid,
I
especially when he
mean,
was in the
I
Wolfpack.
liked him. I liked him. I was about to say I loved him in WCW. So I liked him in that. I but I got why he was in the main event Mafia. And so I got why he was in it. And I also understood why he and all of the main event Mafia won at the end of the night, which I'm sure we'll discuss in long form. I didn't think that, like you said, I didn't think the match was that bad. I thought that, obviously Joe did great and everything like that. But I liked it because I knew the story behind it. Nash screwed Joe out of the title at Bound for Glory. He's with the main event Mafia. Joe wants revenge on him. So I got why the match happened. I kind of would have liked Joe to have like really beaten him up, really to kind of show like how dominant Joe was. Like instead of Joe getting busted open, like he could have busted Kevin Nash open, and like they could have even done it to where like he didn't need anything to bust him open. Like he just sent him into the ring post and then kept working on the head and busted him open that way or something like that. And then Nash could have gotten the victory. Because again, I see why he outsmarted him.
It looked really silly to me for like 7'4" Kevin Nash to be like putting his feet up on the ropes like that.
Yeah,
Plus,
I,
they had already done that spot earlier in the night, and that like I can't get over that. Like that bothers me in shows.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe they should have done, somebody else with Joe or something. Like actually Scott Steiner wasn't even on the show and he's the one that cut the promo at the beginning. So, he could have worked with Joe that night.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just knew the story going into it, so
Yeah, I mean they wanted to establish Nash as a like. I mean the entire faction as like a dominant force, and I get it, but I hated watching Nash beat him. It it hurt my soul. Um, but that being said, neither here nor there. Let's move on. And this match was perfectly placed as a semi-main because it kind of let people settle down a little bit. And then we've got the big main event here. I thought the build up to this, the video packages, the story here was incredible because there's only so much of a heel that you can really make Sting because people love Sting. But
right.
but you could see his point here is that he respected AJ Styles as this rookie coming up through the ranks, but he saw it as Styles disrespecting him. And that was his beef with AJ. And I thought that worked. It came off perfectly to me.
Absolutely. And they actually, I've heard stories about this. And apparently, that's the way they wanted Sting to be. Like, they didn't want him to be full blown heel with this. They wanted him to be a part of the faction, but it's kind of like, we get what like they wanted the fans to kind of be like, we get what you're saying, we're just not liking all this other stuff, the cheating, the beating, every guy up, trying to run them out of the business and stuff like that, which is what Angle, Booker T, and Nash were doing as part of fact. Oh, Steiner as well. But Sting was more like the good voice of the group and stuff like that. But yeah, the storyline for this, dude, the match these two had, I mean, good God, this was where AJ was really showing that he was becoming like the best ever to do this. Like,
And I'm sure he learned a lot from Sting.
oh,
And
absolutely.
and this is during a time where, I mean, Sting definitely isn't in his prime, but he could still go, you
I
know.
was about to say you couldn't have told like I didn't like when I heard his age, I didn't think it was real. I was like, no, he's got to be like 40 right now because dude, he was moving around like old WCW Sting, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell there's little things, right? Like when he bumps, you can tell that it takes him a little bit. He's just a little bit slower on the uptake after he takes a bump, you know. Um,
Right.
but he did really well. I thought he did great. He did a fantastic job. He really like for somebody his age and somebody at this stage in his career, he wanted to go out there and he wanted to show he could work with AJ Styles, and he did it. And
Yeah.
they both looked like $1 million. This is main event booking. This is what it should be like because I mean, you have a guy that both people can get behind, right? Like, or you have two guys that people can get behind. You have the icon Sting, and then you've got the phenomenal AJ Styles. You've got the grizzled veteran who wants respect, feels the younger guy who has disrespected him. You've got the up and coming guy who thinks that it's his time and that he's being held down by this, this veteran who's just trying to hang on to his spot.
Yeah.
It was a great story. It's a simple story that people can comprehend and understand. That's what a professional wrestling storyline should be about. And here we go. And they did it. And then the match that went along with it was phenomenal. Pun intended.
I was about to say you can't even say it anymore without thinking of AJ.
Right.
Uh, and that just goes to show you still like how good he was. I agree completely. This was the way you cap off a pay-per-view at the end of the night. This was the main event that you want for a pay-per-view. The two of them went out there, they delivered. They didn't like they obviously used antics. They had the main event mafia come in, but Sting never cheated to win or anything like that. He rolls up AJ at the end and everything to grab the win. And you see the deflated look on AJ at the end of it. Like, I mean, this was where Sting really pulled him aside and said, all right, kid, you know how to do all of the moves, obviously, and you're very incredible like that. Now, let me show you how to tell a story, kind of thing. Let me show you what this is really all about. And, before we go on, I got to bring this guy up. As much as we joke about him and we talk so much shit about him, especially me, you have to credit, and I won't even do bro. You have to credit Vince Russo for this because Vince Russo was head of creative at the time and he came up with the main event mafia storyline.
I refuse. He, you know what? He might have come up with it. I
Obviously,
don't.
Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell were still there, so they definitely helped. And so was Jim Cornette, obviously. So obviously they helped, but he did help write a lot of this.
I think we talked about this a bit. That Russo is good if you have someone there to filter him. A lot
Right,
like Vince McMahon is good if you have someone there to filter him.
right.
Um, but yeah, so Russo comes up with an idea, and then that idea goes through Cornette, Mantell, whoever. Jarrett gets to Jarrett's desk, and Jarrett goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is pretty good. Who came up with this?" And they go, Russo." And then he's like, "Really? Okay." So I think that's probably what happened. They hammered on it. Um, I
Well,
thought it was a good angle.
yeah. And trust me, like, I don't like giving him credit at all, and I love making fun of him more. But not everything that he has written is that terrible. There have been some stuff where he wrote some of the best stuff you'll see in wrestling,
I agree.
and you have to give him that. The main event mafia storyline was one of them. The Austin versus McMahon angle, he was a big help in that. The Kane versus Undertaker storyline, that was definitely a Vince Russo idea all day long. And that's one of the best stories that WWE ever told, in
The
my
brawl
opinion.
for all,
I said,
and he's still totally entertained by it.
okay, that I will give you. I'm not saying that. Obviously, he has written some of the worst shit ever. But
WCW 2000.
yeah, obviously, there
Yeah,
there wasn't anything good about that. There
you're
wasn't
right
anything.
though. You're
But
right.
there was a lot of stuff in TNA that he wrote that was good.
When they brought him into TNA, I remember it caused a lot of issues because a lot of people did not want to work with Russo.
Mhm.
Um, I
And
want to
he wrote
say,
a lot of Asylum.
what's that?
Yes, I said he wrote a lot of the Asylum days.
Yeah, I want to say though that when Bischoff and them came in, that was like one of their like stipulations is like Russo had to go.
No, because they weren't going to get rid of him. Dixie liked him too much, and there was too much heat on Jeff Jarrett at the time. But no, so Bischoff, like Russo could stay, but he couldn't get out of line with Hogan or Bischoff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we don't have time to get into like all the nonsense that Dixie Carter
Right.
got herself involved in. Just Dixie Carter ultimately became a mark for herself
Yeah.
a- as like a part of a wrestling storyline. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I never gave a single shit about anything Dixie Carter did on screen in
No,
TNA.
and I know we're not going to get too much into it, but I will say this. Her getting into a storyline would have worked only one way, which is what they wanted. Unfortunately, he left, which was AJ Styles. Had AJ stayed and done that feud with her, it'd have been, I guarantee you, I will go out on a limb and say this, it would have been one of the hottest angles in wrestling at the time because it was real.
By the time AJ left, though, I feel like TNA was really on the downswing.
Well, they
Um,
definitely were.
so I don't know that. I mean, I wouldn't have watched it, so I wouldn't have known if it was good or not. But that's neither here nor there. The
That's just
TNA,
like, really.
yeah, the TNA we're watching here at 2008. This was prime TNA right here. This
Yes.
was, um, I consider like from the days they were on weekly pay per view, right? When they really from when they did the first like, um, you know, the whole era where they did the first Six Sides of Steel. When they did the first Daniels, and Joe and AJ feud with the triple threat. That whole time period up until probably the arrival of Hogan and Bischoff, I would consider that to be the prime TNA. It
I
it it was good and like pretty much all the time, and it was better than WWE, and you were seeing
Oh yeah,
things in it that you wouldn't see in WWE for a decade.
by far. And they had some stupid storylines at the same time during 2007 and stuff like that. They had hit or misses at times, but I definitely supported them huge at the time because it's just like we are today in ways. At least there is another company though that's on national TV now besides WWE. But that was my thing. I was so sick and tired of WWE. At the time when TNA came, WCW had just closed, so did ECW. There was not that truly alternative product out there, and everybody thought there never was going to be again because how's anybody going to do it anymore? And then TNA came along, and you started seeing them get really big. In 2008, I would say 2009 is where they peaked. Like at Bound for Glory 2009 was like their highest point, in my opinion, before Hogan and Bischoff. Hogan and Bischoff might have helped ratings in some ways, but not for the ways that they think, kind of thing. But um, this was really when it looked like, okay, I'm hopeful now. There's going to be another wrestling company out there. There's going to be someone else to go see other than WWE and not feel like I've wasted my money or whatnot, kind of thing. Like it really felt like that. And so I love this, reminiscing back on this pay-per-view. It sucks that TNA could never capitalize on any momentum that they ever had.
Yeah.
Like they never could get that next level when it came to arenas or production or toys or games or merchandising or marketing or anything like that. It's just like they went with a basic formula. Hire all of the big names that are already big in WWE, make our own guys, but don't really make them, kind of thing. Like, and then of course, they ran out of money.
Right. I mean, there's a ton of lessons to be learned. I guarantee you that everybody at AEW is, they watched TNA make the mistakes that they're trying not to make, and I hope they don't make.
Right,
At the time, TNA was trying to pull a WCW 2.0. They were trying to, okay, we're gonna snatch everybody from WWE that we can get, and then we're gonna make these angles out of it. And this worked for a while, but I mean, they kind of, they just made mistake after mistake after mistake, and they made some of the same mistakes that WCW made too, with them not really wanting to put these guys over the the older talent. The same thing that's going on with NWO, where they were just beating the shit out of the WCW roster.
right,
Um, I mean, they didn't put the belt on AJ for a long time after this.
right.
It was I believe at the what was it Bound for Glory 2009 when they did that? Well,
Oh no, Bound. So actually won it at No
it was a
Surrender.
five-way
Yeah,
five-way
and
match.
and really, to me, what should have happened was Sting should have won that match, and then he went into Bound for Glory as the champion, and AJ beats him at Bound for Glory. But that's just me. Um, but man, I gotta hand it to TNA at this point. I really liked this pay per view though, man. And I love the main event mafia um, angle and stuff like that. I like reminiscing back on this. This is one of my favorite TNA pay per views for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's easily top five for me. It was, and they told a really good story from start to finish throughout the night.
Yeah, and here's another thing that I was always a fan of, even with the pay per view days of TNA, was I always loved the fact that to me they had a true variety. They had, your entertaining storylines and stuff like that. Then you had your wrestling on there. And then you had hardcore elements, just not every single matchup and pointless ones, kind of thing. Like I always thought that, I love, you know, the amount of blood that they would have and everything. I didn't think it was too much. Sometimes I did think it was unnecessary depending on a match, like the Joe and Nash match. I was just like, why is Joe bleeding all of a sudden? But that's neither here nor there. But I always liked that about Tina. I liked the product that they presented at the time. Just a lot of the stuff that they did worked well with what they were going for as a brand.
There was so much more wrestling on TNA at this point in time,
Right.
and a lot of people may have said, WWE, of course they stayed the course, and it wasn't like WCW where TNA ever had a chance of beating them or really being a huge competition for them, but it was such a great alternative product. Um, and WWE adopted many, many, many of the things that TNA did after several years, uh, and a lot of the best talent in the world right now, including a bunch of the ones on WWE's roster, on NWA's roster, on New Japan's roster, Ring of Honor. You look at it, there are people at the top in all of those organizations that came through those doors at TNA.
Yeah, and I've often said this when TNA kind of failed, kind of kind of thing, and I kind of hate using that, but it's true. When they failed, that was when the rise of the independents happened
Yeah.
because everyone who were just legit wrestling fans, whether you were a TNA fan or whether you hated it or you were a WWE fan or whatnot, true wrestling fans, they were like, no. Like when TNA failed, it was kind of like, damn it, like here we go again, another 10 years or 20 years before someone is able to do this again. And instead, the fans kind of went, no, 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 wait a minute. We discovered TNA and they were technically an independent promotion. There are these other independent promotions. That's when you saw the rise of New Japan, ROH, Lucha Underground popped up, and TNA, they're technically still around. It's just not TNA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, there's a lot of people in this industry that I've had the privilege of working with or seeing in person or whatever that, came up through TNA. And I just, I'm very glad that TNA existed. I'm not interested in the product today or for even the last 5, 10 years, but a lot of the people that came up through this era, their success was not going to be defined by TNA's success.
Yeah.
When you're that good, your success isn't tied to where you're working as far as a company. And I mean, AJ, Joe, Rude, Storm, a lot of them have shown that. Alex Shelley, one of the biggest, like most sought after talents on the indie scene right now. Um, yeah, I mean, this was a great event. Yeah, I mean, Saban is incredible. Christopher freaking Daniels. I mean, the
There
list goes on and on. So,
Yeah, it's crazy, and it seemed like they all came, out of TNA at one point. And like I said, you know, people who didn't really see TNA around this time, you need to go and watch some of this stuff. Especially, get the Impact Plus app because they've got some really good stuff. It's some really good television. I'm going to be honest. It's definitely. I'll say this. I put it up there against anything WWE is doing right now.
I agree. I subscribed to the app. I really like it. It's $2 cheaper than WWE Network, and none of your money goes to anybody that killed Owen Hart. So there you go. Um, that being said, we should probably wrap this up. We're at an hour
Yeah.
and a half. Definitely go check out the event. It's still playing on my TV back here, but I'm gonna go soon, so you're not gonna be able to keep watching it if that's where you're choosing to watch it. Uh, Um, that being said, man, so we gotta get some housekeeping out. We talked about going back and forth on our topics that we're gonna choose.
Okay.
So for the next episode, I want to go kind of out on a limb, and we may bring a guest in for this.
Okay.
We'll see, but I want us to independently put down our top 5 matches of all time in order, and I don't want to discuss them off air. I don't want to discuss them at all until we're here live on the program, and I want us to go through those and discuss them. And I think having a third person do their own list would be good. So
Oh, that'd be interesting. That'd
because
be really fun.
I think you and I will have at least one, maybe two that are both on our list. Probably not in the same places, but
Mhm.
yeah, I could definitely see us having some crossover. So I'm thinking of maybe I can get somebody that's maybe a little more old school that might would have a completely different list than you or I, and we could possibly get them to come on as well. So we may do it just us. We may do it with a guest, but that's what I want our topic to be next week.
And these are just our opinions,
You're
right? Like
100% your opinion.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't have to be necessarily like just bell to bell. It could be story told by the match, the storyline leading up to the match. All of that, all inclusive. So it's not just ring work. It's what kind of story did they tell? What was the build up to the
It's all
match?
right.
What kind of crowd reaction did it get? All that. You know.
Like I was gonna say, like if you saw it live and it just captured you like that.
Right. Yeah. One of mine that will be on my list is probably that. That's probably a big factor. So
Okay.
yeah, I want to do the our top five matches of all time, and we'll kind of talk about those. Um, and that'll be really fun, and that'll be our next topic that we're gonna do.
All right, sounds good, bro.
That being said, man, tell me what's going on Stovall Wrestling Network. What can people check out on there?
Oh, Stovall Wrestling Network. We're still talking about what's going on in today's wrestling society. We're also talking about, speaking of society, Wrestling Society X. We're doing a watch along with that, and that has been really fun. We've also started to experiment with things when it comes to that. So definitely check that out. We're just talking about, though, what's going on currently. We're talking about past events as well. Just talking about wrestling in general, whatever topic we want to discuss. Like the recent episode, we talked about if the idea of the name TNA was a good idea. Um, and I believe we're going to continue that discussion on another episode as well. So we've got a lot of good things going on there. And then also check out my other podcast called Power Rangers Go. That one keeps growing and growing every day. And we're getting further and further along into the series, man. It won't be long before like we're into the ninja series that picks up, the Mighty Morphin movie, or hell, even Zeo. So it won't be too long, but we're moving along in that, and so we're having a lot of fun with that, me and Ace. So check that out. Check out the Stovall Wrestling Network. I greatly appreciate it from everyone, and as well support this show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We've got a lot of great things going on at Entertainment Evolved. Right now, my other podcast, Know You Are, is on a bit of a hiatus, but I got a couple of episodes in the backlog that we haven't put out yet. So, I will be putting those out over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, these are just all like really good shows to support, and we keep the content going. So the idea, is like if you like any of these programs, you're always going to have something to listen to. I stay a couple episodes behind on the Power Rangers Go podcast, and every time I like go for a walk or a long trip or something, it's right there to throw it on. So it's always fun. But
It's
Caleb,
awesome.
that's all the time we got for the day, man. Thanks for joining me as always,
All right, man. Thanks for having me as always.
and thank you to each one of you out there who has stuck with us. And this has been an Evolved Review.